Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, this is The Gailey Show. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel right now, youtube.com/at The Gailey Show. I'm your host, JP Derabogosian. It's Friday of an awful week. Oh, gosh. Yeah, let's be honest about that. But Fridays are our culture and entertainment day. And for me, I don't know for you listeners at home or in your cars, film and theater have been so instrumental in helping me feel seen and valued and affirmed. And so that's why we always like to dedicate Fridays to culture and entertainment. And we get to talk about both of those things today. On the show, Flip the Script Film Festival has opened their submission process for this year's festival. Organizers Mikael Burke and Victoria Carpenter are here with the deets. And Milo Imagines the World is debuting at the Children's Theater Company on February 4th. The director joins us in the second half hour of the show. Up first, Flip the Script Fest. So this is an annual festival celebrating queer films, and their mission is to remove barriers to access queer film. And if you've ever tried searching for LGBTQ films, you know exactly what we're talking about there. Their film festival is a hybrid 3-day event that takes place every fall. They also have a monthly film series called Queer Gaze. Every Pride Month, they have a variety of film events at venues across the Twin Cities of Minnesota. So co-founder Victoria Carpenter is here with us, a multimedia artist based in the Twin Cities, and co-director Mikael Burke, who spent 6 years working for the MSP Film and the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festivals before joining Flip the Script, is here with us as well. Friends of the show, Matthew and Victoria, welcome back to The Gailey Show.
Thanks for having us.
So good to see both of you again.
Me too.
In these dark times. More so in these dark times, because I imagine I always love the slate of films that you bring to the festival and the intentionality around that, and speaking to the moment, but also to, queer films that, need some, you're highlighting them and like, hey, y'all need to be watching these. There's some good stuff out there. So tell us about this year's submission process, because it's open now, and I believe the early bird deadline is in the first part of March, right?
March 1st, yeah. I can go down the deadline list for you. I know Matt's been doing an amazing job with programming, so I know he'll have all sorts of details for that for Queer Gaze. March 1st, early bird deadline. April 5th, regular deadline. May 3rd, extended deadline. We're trying a late deadline this year as well in July, and then everyone will know by August 8th if you've been picked or not for the festival. You can submit films at filmfreeway.com/flipthescriptfest. And if you ever need submission code waived or anything, just feel free to give us a message. Do we have a code already, Matthew, that we could shout out?
We do.
Okay.
We have what's becoming, I think of it now as our standard waiver code, which is Queer Wave, WAIVE, so that it'll always stay the same.
Important distinction, WAIVE, because in my head I heard that and I was like, oh, wait.
And a little bit like Queer Wave of Cinema.
Right? Yes. So tell me a little bit about the film categories that folks can submit to.
This year, we expanded our categories a little bit more to help define how folks, where they submit, so they make sure we're better aware of what type of content it is. So we have our narrative genre feature films. So that's going to be anything from a comedy, horror, Western, if you have it, science fiction, just films that have a general, like traditional genre appeal, or that flip the script on that genre and turn it upside down. We also have a shorts narrative genre that complements that. Again, we have documentary features and shorts categories. This year, we're introducing the episodic category. We've had folks approach us when we've been at Pride saying, they do a web series. Can they submit that? And that definitely is something we want to take a look at. So we've made that its own distinct category this year so that people don't question where to put it for us. We also have an avant-garde and experimental shorts program. So that's going to be anything that's a visual performance experimental piece. And then music videos, which we had a lot of in the first year, and we'd love to see even more of those coming back in. So we've got a lot of expanded categories going forward.
Now, are there, I don't know if this is something that you would be looking for. Like, are there particular themes or like content that you're hoping to see like this year, or is it literally just you've got a film or a web series or a music video? We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. Yeah, for sure. If you're a queer maker, we want to hear your story. Obviously, the queer experience is vast. The way we view queer experiences, the way we view, experiences outside of the queer community as well. We wanna see what y'all make. We always love to laugh, love to cry, whatever. But any story is welcome for sure.
Talk to me about how you're thinking about this year's festival, given, I mean, it's been a week and they've already come out of the gate swinging, the new administration, in full on erasure mode. And how are you thinking then about, because film is so much about visualization and putting stories out there and embodying the experience. Talk to me a little bit about how you're thinking about the festival in light of what we're about to go through and are already going through.
I can speak for myself. I try to keep in mind that what this event was made for was to take up space and create space for visibility and telling queer stories that are subverting the norm of what traditionally we see on screen. We're not, for the festival, focusing on stories that are tragic or where our characters are being punished for their identities. They're celebrations of the queer experience. They're stories that are showing us how we know to ourselves to exist, and that our sexual identity is not necessarily the main point of every day and every moment of our life.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping in mind that despite what we're experiencing and where things could be going, this is a beacon of light that we're continuing to shine and that we know is coming in October, and doing our best to get as much visibility around it and to have a space for folks to come together. We are still super motivated to be able to bring the festival this year into the Twin Cities at a venue if possible. So hopefully this is the year we're able to do that and see what it's like to have films on screen in Minneapolis or St. Paul. Those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah. Everything that Matt said, absolutely. So excited that this is sticking around and that it's a thing that people still have to go to. Forgive me if I get a little emotional. I can't help but name the fear too. That's I feel like living in Minnesota and living in the Twin Cities, we're relatively in such a lovely bubble, and it's been amazing to have that as the place to really lay down the foundation for this festival and to create space for people and to hold that space. But I'm also thinking about my community and their safety, and keeping that's always been something that's been in our minds as we put this on, but continuing to keep that in mind and continuing to make sure that we're diversifying the ways that we can communicate with each other, and that we, something like having the online version of Queer Gaze, that's something that, we can have from our living rooms too, if we need to. Well, we do need to, but to continue to have that. So I'm holding tight to the joy and all the people that I've met through this. And I'm also holding tight to the hope that we get to continue to nail it down and continue pushing back and holding space in a joyful way. It's one of those, like you said, in film and everything, it's such a joyful way to hold space and to communicate with people who might be unreachable otherwise.
I'll be the slate of films that you bring are always so I don't want to say hidden gems, but they're like, ooh, here are some things that you might not necessarily you might not see in a major AMC theater, but also there are films that come in that are so speaking to the moment. I'm thinking about last year's festival, and so I'll be really curious. I'm sure you all are gonna be very curious to see the content, the stories that folks are going to be sharing and telling this year. And actually, now that I think about that, given the deadlines that you were sharing, if there are folks that are in production right now, like there's still time. Or I mean, even I'm sorry, I'm not a filmmaker, so if I were thinking about something, I mean, if there's a May deadline, you could start a production in February, right? And still get it, mixed and edited and color
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
colorized.
There have been beautiful films, award-winning films shot on iPhones. You can do, if you've got an idea and you've got the juice, get it out for sure.
Tangerine.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly.
Queer film.
Hmm.
Amazing. And also,
Amazing.
as an Armenian rather American, groundbreaking film in terms of Armenian representation.
Hmm.
I was not expecting
Right?
when I got it there, and that actor got a lot of flack for doing that, but
Yeah.
not enough love. Yeah. I think I saw that an iPhone is actually, I think it's a certain generation, is actually an approved recording device for Netflix films now.
That would make sense. I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know why they would.
$5,000 cameras,
Right.
and an iPhone.
Right. Yeah.
They shoot in 4K, then they're ready for Ultra HD.
It's wild. It's wild. I don't know where I found that. Maybe we need to fact check it. But I remember looking. No, I remember looking at the website and being like, "Wow, this is so interesting." Give
Mhm.
me we're coming up on a break here, so I don't want to ask you a major question, which is one of my things that I do as a host. But tell me again how folks can submit to the festival, that process, the promo code for a waiver if they need a waiver as well.
Mhm.
Sure.
Go for it, Maddie.
Oh, sure. Visit filmfreeway.com /flip the script fest. That's where you'll find us. You can also just search for Flip the Script Fest in their search bar. And then you will submit under a category that aligns with your film. If you need a waiver code, you can email me at Matthew, MATTHEW, at flipthescriptfest.org. And I'm more than happy to share that with you. It also is Queerwave, QUEERWAIVE.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We're going to take a short break here, more with Matthew and Victoria on the other side. We're going to talk about their monthly film series. You are listening to The Gailey Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. I'm your host, JP Bogosian. Here with me in the studio are the co-founders, co-directors of the Flip the Script Film Festival, Matthew Burke and Victoria Carpenter, who also, in addition to their annual film festival, have a monthly series called Queer Gaze, where you have a partnership with a local theater where you show films that are... how would I describe this? How do you describe it? Because some of them are classics, right, that you get to see again on the big screen, and some of them are like newer films too, right? So walk us through that event and what you have coming up here for our next for your next month's film.
Sure. So Queer Gaze started with our partnership with Imagine Willow Creek in Plymouth, Minnesota, who hosted our festival. The first year we went hybrid and had in-person screenings. And it is a place for us to showcase, like you said, classic queer cinema, cult favorites, and hidden gems, things that are new or just never got an opportunity to theatrical run in this area. Like, we know we haven't seen the big screen, so most people probably haven't either.
Yeah.
And we got updates this year. We have a new date and time. We're now screening our monthly films on the last Sunday of every month. And now they start at 2 p.m., which at this time of the year, when it gets dark so early, we're like, oh, it'll be great to go see a great film, come outside. There's still some daylight going on, and you can get some more things done before your work week starts. So that's an exciting new thing that takes place this month for the first time. And this month's film, which shows this Sunday at 2 p.m. at Imagine Willow Creek in Plymouth, is Satanic Panic, which is a trans and queer comedy horror film from Australian director Alice Mayer McKay. It is a lot of fun. I was just watching the screener the other day. It is definitely a comedy. It's got the spooky satanic cult that's out to get trans people, and we have our heroes coming to avenge the death of their friend and take out these demon-possessed satanic cult members. It definitely has John Waters vibes. People are comparing Alice to this generation's John Waters. I think it's one not to be missed. You gotta come and check it out
This Sunday.
this Sunday.
People get tickets? They can just buy tickets at the door. Or do they have to pre-register?
You can buy tickets online through the Imagines website. You can also buy them at the box office and save on that service fee for online purchasing if you want to be a little savvy. The tickets are $10, which is great. We got a great matinee price. So
yeah,
however you'd like. We love seeing advanced purchases so we can get excited for who's going to be joining us, but there's also a lot of fun in the surprise of being like, oh, our friends are here when they show up day of.
Do you do talk backs? I mean, not talk about, but do you have like conversations, like set up the film and then conversations afterwards?
Well, go ahead, Vicky.
Oh yeah, we usually do a little intro. Sometimes I'm trying to think. We've had a couple close calls with having guest filmmakers come in for these queer gaze screenings, but it hasn't quite worked out. We do have an adorable, just like hang and chat afterwards. With the audience, we usually kiki a little bit in the lobby afterwards, chat about the film, what we like, what we're looking forward to. So it's a great time. I have personally learned about a lot of cool new movies that way through the folks coming to see, the films or just hear about other great events going on in town. So it's really fun.
I was going to ask then, like, how do you select the films that you choose to do on a monthly basis?
Matt has done an amazing job taking the lead in that. We're having some changeover lately, and I'm so excited about it. A little bit about how we pick as opposed to like the submissions and stuff in the festival itself. Again, the festival flipped the script. It started out as we want to show these stories that are being told. We don't want to show tragic stuff. We don't always want to be seen that way. Obviously, there is a lot of tragic things that happen in the queer community. Again, not saying that that's what we focus on in Queer Gaze, but it's a little bit more of an open programming. We don't have quite as strict of like, maybe not as much like old language and stuff. It's like, we'll have those conversations. We'll watch queer films that have like straight actors in them and then talk about it, because some of our elders, that was such a beacon for them. And so it's a conversation for sure. So we watch all sorts of stuff during Queer Gaze, whatever is exciting and fun, and we really want to put somewhere on the big screen.
And sometimes sometimes it's we're screening so many things and we have a limited number of slots during the festival itself that a lot of times will be things that come up and it's like, oh, it didn't fit, but we can look at this for the monthly, or it comes out and we just miss like our timetable to have it be something we invite to the festival, that it's like, let's see if we can get it for Queer Gaze. We've definitely been lucky enough to film things at our monthly series that are technically still on the festival circuit. But since it's a special one-night event, they're able to allow us to do that and kind of have it be this extra festival event. So it's stuff that's as new as just being out in that festival circuit still, or newly released. And then things that are classic, things that haven't been seen in decades, stuff that I remember seeing late at night on cable TV when I was a teen, being like, when Stars was new, that channel always had like foreign films and a lot of it was queer. And I'd be like, what is this? And now I know and how to find it.
Oh, I love that you're able to provide that opportunity in terms of timing for films that might not make it for the film festival. I see in the background there, Victoria, that you have a kitty cat. What role does the kitty cat have in the film festival? Because they're coming over to talk.
If I had this sound unplugged, she would be part of she loves like when I talk on Skype to people. Yeah, she's trying to take over actually. So she helps review the films, but she's trying to take over. So we gotta watch out for her. Yeah.
Well, for the monthly series, I'm just gonna throw out there. I know this film had a huge release. It was very well lauded, but I want to see it again on the big screen. So if you ever want to do like a All of Us Strangers retrospective, I've
Ooh.
watched everything of Andrew Haig. I don't know if I'm the expert to talk about that, but I would love to do anything to. I will do anything, is what I'm saying, to see that film on the big screen again. So just let me know what
Love
you need me to
that.
do, and I will do that because I cry even thinking about that movie.
That could be another great fit. We also program a series for Imagine Willow Creek during June, where we program a queer film 4 Sundays in a row. So the first 4 Sundays, there's a fifth one this year, but it overlaps with Pride Weekend. And we're like, everyone on that Sunday is going to either be going home and going to bed or going out for the last parties of the weekend. So that's a place where we look at things like trying to bring back audience choice winners in the festival, classic queer films, something new, like just a variety of things that represent our community and that we want to look at during Pride and share, like see on the big screen, like you said again.
That is something that we can absolutely look forward to. The website is flipthescriptfest.org. You can find out all the information and get your film ready to go to submit for this year's film festival. Matthew and Victoria, thank you so much for joining me here on The Gaily Show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, JP.
Quick break. When we come back, the director of Milo Imagines the World at Children's Theater Company. You're listening to The Gaily Show. Welcome back to The Gaily Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm your host, JP Derbragosian. With me here in the studio, joining me is our executive producer, Jim Pounds.
Hi, all.
We have a very special guest, new guest to The Gaily Show today. Mikael Burke is the director of the upcoming show Milo Imagines the World at Children's Theater Company, which opens on February the 4th. Mikael, welcome to The Gaily Show.
Thank you all for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the show that is coming up here? What is because it's also based on a book, correct?
Correct. It is based on a picture book by Matt De La Pena with illustrations by Christian Robinson. The book writer Terry Guest and the composer Christian Magby and lyricist Christian Albright have worked really hard over the last couple years to bring this beautiful story to 3D live theater life, and it's a wild ride. So the story, we follow a boy named Milo, who's about 7 years old, and he and his older sister are on a subway ride through New York City on their way to visit their mom. We find out that their mom is incarcerated, and so this story follows this, quote unquote, atypical family as Milo and his sister make their way to see their mom. Milo, who is perhaps a bit nervous about certain aspects of the commute, the length of the commute, the scary spookiness of the train sometimes, he passes his time by people watching, like many of us do on public transit or the like, and he looks at people and he sees what they're wearing, what's going on, and he just has this thing where he's like, I know what's going on with that person, and he imagines a whole life for them, a whole journey for them. And so the musical sort of takes us on these mini adventures with Milo and his imagination as he draws assumptions about what he thinks these people are doing. But as we all know as adults, making assumptions isn't necessarily the best way to get to know someone or a real way to understand what's actually going on with someone. And so Milo sort of realizes through the course of the journey, as he's making these assumptions about these people, he starts to wonder what people think about him. And if they get the full story just from what he's wearing or what his face is doing. And so it really sets us up nicely to finally meet his mother, who comes out in the orange jumpsuit. And we might first assume that's a bad person because she's in jail. But we've learned along the way that that might not be the whole story. There's more than meets the eye. Don't judge the sketchbook by its cover.
What? So the film has a variety of genres of music as well, given the variety of imaginations that Milo has for folks. Walk us through what the directing process has been like for this show. I mean, I imagine it must have been a riot.
We're having an absolute blast, really and truly. Excuse me. Oh, am I still here? It
We
says
still have
I've lost.
Michael. I think we can still hear you.
Yeah. Oh, you might have frozen again.
The question, and I'll start the timer.
So, Michael, what I think is really intriguing about the musical is that because of all the imaginations that Milo has, there's a variety of different types of music in the show as well. So, can you talk us a little bit about the different type of music that's going on there? Because this must have been just a riot to direct and to get into all these different aspects of the show.
We have been having an absolute blast in the rehearsal room because there is just so much imagination to get to bring to life. And we really do go through a myriad of styles and genres. There's a country western number. There's a number that feels a little bit more like Hamilton. There's a number that feels kind of like Dancing in the Street. So we sort of go all over the place. And the design team, the set designer and the props designer are bringing Milo's drawings to life in ways that are very fun and funny and delightful. And so there's a lot of moving parts in this one, but I've got a great team of collaborators working alongside me, and I think the end result's going to just be an exciting night in the theater. So we really are having a very good time keeping all these plates spinning, as it were.
The musical is based off of a book that has been banned quite often, largely because the folks supposedly in charge think that incarceration is inappropriate for children to read about, and there is a depiction of a couple who are married, same gender couple. Talk to me through, did any of that come up in the conceptualization and the conversations you were having about how to approach this story?
It absolutely did. Definitely the point about incarceration and how we approach that and bring that to a young audience in a way that is open-minded and thoughtful. And I think that one of the beautiful things about the story is we don't ever learn why mom is incarcerated. That's just not a part of the story. It's not a part of the picture book, and it's not a part of the musical. And when young people encounter the story, they often want to know why. But I think what the story is up to is sort of saying, if you have a why, then in a way that becomes the litmus test for whether or not this person is good or bad. Like if you have a reason that you can point at for why that person's here, then that person's humanity ends at that point. But if we take away that why and we just say, look at the person in front of you, and what do you see without the sort of pre-awareness of why, what happened in the past, we're able to see with a little bit more open-heartedness. And I think that's a really great thing for young people to encounter. And the sort of idea that like everyone makes mistakes, including the young people. And when you make a mistake, there are consequences, of course. And mom is living through the consequences of something, a mistake that she may have made. But when you make a mistake, does that automatically mean you're a bad person? And I think that's something else that this conversation ignites with young people is sort of, getting them to reframe this idea that making mistakes means you're bad. It doesn't, and we shouldn't think that way. And in terms of the same-sex couple that appears in the story,
We do nod to that in our version, but it is one of those things where in the story it's a pretty it's a briefer moment as compared to the incarceration context of the play of the story, and so the same is true in the musical. Like, it is present, but it is not a huge point.
As you're saying that, it recalls, I wrote something down from your bio that I thought was so interesting, from your website, where you said that my theater is one that fosters and celebrates your imagination and belief. Rather than realism, I practice feelism, stagecraft which feels real, truthful, honest, regardless of whether it appears real. Talk to me about how you brought that feelism to this show.
Absolutely. I think, for me, that really is about embracing your audience and embracing their imagination and trusting that they're going to go along the ride with you. And so this has been a really fun journey in thinking about that, because we're able to really go to some wild and exciting places, because we don't have to be beholden to sort of the photorealism of it all. We don't have to have all of the actual details that might need to be present to make a subway station a subway station. But with these few bits and pieces, we're able to create the feeling of being in a subway station, being a tiny human who's run away from your adult, and suddenly you look around and you don't know where you are, and everything feels a bit bigger and a bit scarier than it did when you were standing next to a person. Things like that. That doesn't mean that like we aren't interested in truth and honesty and the portrayals of these human beings. It just means that we can create things that are more specifically tied to the emotional truth of the moment, even if that means that the real world logic of it doesn't quite jive with the world that you and I occupy on a daily basis.
That's so interesting. Michael, can I ask a question? I'm going to make a guess that you have directed a children's theater before, but is that true? Or have you directed there before?
I have not directed here at CTC before. This is my first time here. I've done theater with young people and for young audiences many times before, but this is my first time here in Minneapolis.
Congratulations!
And so far, so good. Having a great time.
That's exciting. What I always imagined, and I was an actor for a few years, that the director would stand up at a place like children's theater and just wave their arms and shout out whatever came to their imagination, and those amazing technicians would be able to create it. Are you ever surprised at the process? This incredible talent that exists, off stage at that place. One of the better places in the world, in my view, for that kind of theater. And so, is it sort of? Do you feel like you've, died and gone to heaven? That you have just so many options that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise?
I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's been a dream, because a lot of places you work, I'm like, oh well, here's an idea that I have that's really exciting to me, but it's probably out of scope, out of scale, out of budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But here at CTC, the sky is the limit, and I mean that even in terms of like, if I'm like, I have this impulse and idea, their reaction isn't just great, we'll do that. It's awesome. I see that, I hear that. And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And suddenly we've got 5 different impulses and ideas for how we could accomplish this thing. Each that's more exciting and interesting and surprising than the last.
That's great.
And so it absolutely is sort of a dream come true in that way, because there's been very little needing to sort of compromise on the artistic impulses behind the story. So it's really exciting.
That's great. That's good. That's great to hear. And don't get used to it, because it doesn't exist everywhere.
Sure, absolutely.
What he's saying is, we want you to come back.
Right.
I'd love to, yeah.
So I know that theater is such an intimate, personal connection in ways that other mediums aren't necessarily so. And I say that as someone who, decades ago dabbled in the acting side of things. Talk to me about the connection that you had to this material.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's interesting. So the picture book, really follows Milo. And Adrian is present. Adrian is what we've named Milo's older sister in the book. Um, and she's present in the picture book. But we're really focused on Milo's experience in this. In the musical, because we have this sort of expanded amount of time that we get to stay in this world and follow this story. That also gave us the opportunity to sort of expand on what this relationship is between Milo and his older sister, and like what it means to be a teenager who suddenly has to take on the responsibilities of a parent when circumstances dictate such, and she's forced to grow up a bit before she's ready, and is not able to be the teenager that she really is. And what does that mean? What does that feel like at 16 when you can't just hang out with your friends? And for me, as an oldest child, Adrian's trajectory through this story, watching her brother and how much fun he gets to have while she's bearing she's shouldering all of that responsibility, was certainly my way in. But other folks on the team, like Christian Albright, the lyricist, and Terry Guest, the book writer, have both experienced incarceration in their families, so they have a different way into the story. But across the board, there are some really beautiful connections to our lived experiences that are showing up on stage in exciting ways.
We are talking with Mikael Burke, director of Milo Imagines the World, opening at Children's Theater Company February 4th. One last break to get to, but we're going to be back here with Mikael afterwards. You're listening to The Gaily Show. Welcome back to The Gaily Show. With us here in studio is Mikael Burke, director of Milo Imagines the World, the upcoming show at Children's Theater Company, debuting on February 4th. Mikael, I have a question about theater responding to the moments that we live in. And we're currently living in a moment that I think got darker than we thought it was going to be very quickly with this new administration. And I know for me personally, the theater has played a huge role, whether I was studying, in college and, doing plays on stage, or just going to the theater, or just, getting a play and reading it at home, has been so influential in affirming and for me feeling seen and heard. You are a director with an amazing slew of credits and awards. And so I'm curious for you, how do you see the theater responding to the moment that we're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think what a good question and a tough moment. I think at its heart, I think the theater, it is and has always been sort of a gym for empathy. It's where we go to work the muscle of considering something from someone else's perspective and walking in someone else's shoes, and really putting ourselves into the hearts and minds of another person and their experience to see what the world is like through their eyes. And I think that is always true of the theater and universal in that way. And I think, in times like this, I think the theater is asking us really to do a very, very, very difficult thing. And that is to still find ways to feel compassion toward your fellow human being, you know, and I think, like, on the one hand, right, the theater is you know, it's making that ask of you know, of all of us. So, you know, we may feel unseen and unheard and unrecognized and put down, and the theater is a place that gives us voice to be heard and seen. And it is also a place that is asking us, you know, not to write each other off, because I think really at the end of the day, I know it sounds a little, you know, a little trite, but I truly have to believe that at the end of the day, love is the thing that is going to get us, you know, to a better world. And I think the theater is an absolute celebration of that.
I think that's well put. I think that a lot of folks are thinking about, what does compassion look like right now? How do you learn that, particularly when we see just the way some folks are choosing to express their denigration towards us? Could you share a little bit of what you feel that compassion could look like, what forms it could take? I know that's a huge question to ask. Tell us how to figure it all out, Michael.
Boy, if I had the answer to that, I feel like I'd have so many more dollars in my bank account than I do. Yeah, I mean, I really think at the end of the day, I think compassion looks like it is separating the idea that, like, separating ourselves from the idea that the only way forward is by absolute sort of eye for an eye self-satisfaction. I think, like, you know, if we can figure out a way to and I think some of us are much better at this than others of us who happen to be starting their new term right now. But there's I think there's a real difference between, like, when we're able to sort of look at something and recognize, yes, I have these things, and that person over there does not have these things. I will share what I have. I will let go of my need for self-satisfaction, and I will self-sacrifice so that we can all rise together. I think that is what compassion means. I think that's, like, literally, I think it is compatriot passion, my passion for us together. And I think, you know, that's I think really where the breakdown happens. And I think some people truly you know, struggle with that impulse, and if they're not getting what they think they are owed, period, you know, and they're not going to share what is theirs, like that, you know, I think that's how we end up, you know, like the people of France heading into the French Revolution. You know what I mean? Like, I think it really is like we have to look out for each other, both, you know, figuratively and literally. We have to help each other.
Thank you for that. I could just talk to you all day. Unfortunately, we're coming up on our time. The show is Milo Imagines the World. It is going to be playing at the Children's Theater Company. You can get your tickets now at childrenstheater.org. I imagine, very briefly, I think that the reactions from children, young adults, it must just be such a joy, because I imagine they're very, very honest, whether it's they liking something or not liking something.
Very, very true.
Well, how can folks connect with you, Michael, if they would like to do so online or through social media?
Absolutely. You can check me out at my website, which is mklburke.com, or I'm on Instagram at mklburke as well. You know, and yeah, check out, you know, follow me, see what's up, say hi, and come check out some stuff in Chicago as well.
Definitely. Well, we hope to see you back here soon in Minneapolis. You're a friend of the show, so definitely come back here to visit us. Folks, that is our show for today. We will see you on Monday at 2 p.m. The Matt McNeil Show is up next. Stay tuned for Native Roots Radio after that. Have a great weekend, everybody.